Hello and welcome to another video with myself, as always, Alex Connor. Bit of a blue light there, hey? Makes for a weird effect. And we're back in the car, and today we're talking about balancing fitness with lifestyle. And talking about balance, I'm gonna do this while I'm driving, safely, of course, multitasking, hands-free, because I thought, hey, you know what? I got a big weekend, I've had a massive week, but I still wanna get a video to you guys. So, the least you can do is go like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who is also going to benefit from this material, because there's a few people that probably need to hear this because of the far really extreme in one direction or the other in terms of they're really hardcore or they just don't have any commitment at all. And I would argue that having the balance is more challenging and more difficult. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, so as always, I've made a few key points that I want to address. This is not everything. These are just the main things that come to mind, the biggest mistakes, the biggest struggles that I seem to have had myself, but also seem to get and find that other people have as well from working with them on a day-to-day basis. And the first thing I want to address, and the first point I want to make, is having morning and evening routines. This is something I've talked a little bit about in how to smash your goals in 2020 video, and how to kind of get ahead, and just little like skills and tools for life. And a lot of the time, balancing fitness with lifestyle is the gray area between the elements which are not fitness and nutrition. They're not training and nutrition. They're the elements that happen in between those. And the irony of all that is, what happens in your lifestyle is a direct correlation to the success you're going to have within your training and your nutrition. However, it doesn't get enough attention, and it's that elephant in the room. It's the thing that's right under your nose that a lot of practitioners and a lot of you who are training are just neglecting. And if you don't address them, you're not going to be able to have long-term, sustainable, and enjoyable success. It's just not going to happen. You're going to hit a wall. You're going to be doing things that are just not achievable in the long term. They're just not sustainable because you're going to be busting your balls, or perhaps it's going to be the opposite way around, where you're just not making any progress at all, and you're just going to get really frustrated. So having morning and evening routines can be a really good way to structure your day and ensure that you set up and finish your day with a win. There are also like standardized processes which just help you get into the day and finish the day and unwind, so you can have a really good sleep, but then you can also win the day, or win the morning as people call it. So these morning routines, they don't have to be long. They can be anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes for all of them, or they can be all the way up to half an hour. So you've got to make them bespoke to you, things that actually are relative to your lifestyle. However, I'm going to give you a few examples, because after researching and listening and learning from a lot of successful people and what they did, I started to see a bit of a trend. And most of the successful people in the world, and once again, success in all facets, not just financial, they all sort of do a similar thing. Like there's always a couple of things in common. So when I started to build some morning and evening routines, I looked at these things that were the majority, and I thought, well, if everyone's kind of doing this and this, then that's probably not a bad place to start. And over time, you just kind of refine it. So the first one is make your bed. Sounds simple as shit, but there is actually studies and evidence showing by making your bed and just doing that simple task in the morning, how effective that actually is in terms of, you know, setting your day up and starting and instigating. It's the protagonist for the morning routine. And it doesn't matter how good or bad your day is, you can always start by making your bed. Just getting that notification off the screen there. And then you can have some sort of affirmations. You can re-look over your goals that you've set. Personally, a cold shower is a really good one. That's one I really like. Doesn't matter where, you can always do it generally. Doesn't matter what time of the year. Yes, it's a little bit harder in winter, but it can still be done. So I've also made a video on the cold and the showers, which is quite interesting. So if you guys want to check out that more, you definitely can. Check out Mr. Wim Hof, the Iceman. Definitely some interesting and fascinating stuff. And as always, definitely some carryovers into the industry too. The next thing that I like to do after that is get stuck into some work. So generally for me, it's the waking up, it's the affirmations, it's gratitude in my journal. I've already written down what I want to achieve that day, having a cold shower, and then I start my day. In the evening and the evening routines, it's a similar kind of thing. It's evening gratitude, reviewing the day, the lessons learned. I like to stretch. I like to read, and then I just like to go to bed and chill out. And it's kind of that process of winding down. So you can start to create these routines, and you want them to be, you know, again, sustainable, that you can do anywhere, something that you condense. And it doesn't matter if you don't get them all done, but it's just a pattern that you're building within your days to set yourself up. And again, this helps you maintain balance over the long term, especially if you're someone who wants to get ahead and you want to progress in life and you want to maintain that clarity and balance, and remove anxiety as well. And, you know, obviously meditation's in there too, but meditation can be anything where you can just focus on that one thing at a time. It doesn't necessarily have to be the stereotype sitting on a cushion and, you know, having your hands in a certain position. The second thing I want to talk to you guys about, I've made some notes as always on the old laptop, is planning ahead. This is a really, really big one in maintaining the balance, because if you don't plan ahead, as the maxim goes, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, you know, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. I usually say that backwards because I'm dyslexic, so that's a win. Got that one bang on that time. Didn't have to edit it. Great. But, you know, it's really simple, once again, but a lot of us aren't doing it because the path to least resistance will always win. So, for example, if you don't prepare food in advance, or you don't have food available in advance, or good healthy food, you're gonna buy it, and you're gonna buy the thing that's most convenient. And if you're someone who is not anchored in your fitness journey or just yet, you're probably more likely to buy something that might not perhaps be the best option for you at the time, depending on your goals. And it just increases this stress and this anxiety, and it's harder to maintain that balance. But at the same time as well, planning ahead and knowing, hey, you know what, maybe I don't have meals for this particular day or this particular meal, but I have everything else set up, could also reduce anxiety as well, because you might go, when food isn't available and I'm at work, I know that I can have X, Y, and Z because I have these healthier alternatives nearby. Or perhaps you've even gone ahead and bought some food, or it might have been some protein shakes, or some, you know, it might have been a combination of nuts or something like that, or some healthy snacks that you've placed in the workplace or wherever this working environment is for you. So at the time when you're like, oh shit, I've not brought my lunch today, or oh, that's all right, I knew I wasn't going to have it, but oh, I've still got this food here as well, then you're not going to be stressed out because you've planned ahead. It's the same with, you know, training as well. If you're going through a period of time where perhaps it's really busy, or you're going to do some travel and you think, shit, you know, I can't get in the gym and I usually train 5 days a week, what am I going to do? I think understanding and educating yourself that, you know, you're not going to lose all your gains is probably one of the first protocols. But then also, if you really want to train, having a look and a research at, you know, the places you're going to if you've not been there before, asking friends or family, hey, is there a gym nearby? You know, how accessible is it? Do I need to travel? You know, do I need to hire a car? Can I take a bus? Can I take an Uber? All these little things. Is it even necessary to train that much? Should I just enjoy the holiday? You know, can I maintain some balance? Is there a beach nearby? Is there some, you know, workout, calisthenic bars, or whatever it might be? So again, like planning ahead and just knowing and spending a little bit of time so that you can remove anxiety, but then also create contingencies, is going to be really big in maintaining that balance as well. So you're always calibrating, you're always sort of maintaining. And I think something that needs to be addressed here is the art of flexibility and spontaneity. And what I mean by that is, the more you build these routines and habits, and the more experience that you gain, the more you can ad-lib. Now, when you're starting off with anything and a skill, you generally need a little bit more structure. You need a little bit more guidance. But as you get more proficient in something, you can then start to wing it a little bit more. However, if you start to wing it when you don't have that skill set yet, or perhaps you're not at that level yet, you can actually cause more harm than good, to the point where now you're overthinking everything, you're stressing out, you don't know what to do, and you end up either doing nothing or just doing something completely extreme. So I think there is a lot to be said for when you get to that point of not over preparing and not planning, but just knowing when you're at that point via, skill level, proficiency, and time, so you can actually put in those skills that you've learned and wing it. And I always say this to clients when they go on holiday, or they're going on a cruise, or they're not going to be able to, be at their prime, if you like, in terms of maybe you tracking macronutrients, or it might be going to the gym and tracking everything. And I say, hey, look, if you can't walk away from this and intuitively do it at this point after a certain amount of coaching experience and time, then I've failed as a coach. Like we've learned nothing. We've not applied it. And a lot of the time, this fear is a an acronym for false expectations appearing real. And often the client is actually really good at doing what they need to do because they've already learned it, but they just don't realize it yet because they were so reliant, or they'd caused so much anxiety where it's like, oh yeah, actually I do know how to eat good foods. I do kind of know the quantities, and yeah, you're right, I can make shift these movements in the gym, and I don't have to just use the same machine and go the same time of day. So it's sort of like you Miyagi people, as I call it. You have inadvertently taught them how to do it without using the tools of which they started. It's kind of like stabilizers on a bike. You take it off over time. So I think that's a really good point to keep in mind as well, and knowing where you are on that journey. The third point I want to make is social time, friends, and sex. Yeah, we're talking about the sex. Sex education 101. Shouldn't work out of your scope, kids. Well, in that case, you should be a fucking professional. Kidding. But this is a really big area that generally does get neglected by a lot of people who are into fitness, and obviously we're not going out, we're generally not fucking drinking and taking drugs for the most part. However, there are lots of people in the industry who do that, and they live a bit of a hypocritical lifestyle, or they live the extreme lifestyle where they're like really, really good through the week or really good for a period of time, and then they just go and just absolutely get smashed off their face, take loads of drugs and drinks. And for me, that's not someone who's truly into fitness, because if you're truly into fitness, you wouldn't abuse your body in such a way and go from black to white. And I think there's a lot of psychological aspects there that need to be addressed. But I digress. Knowing and having a social life, and again, it comes down to that flexibility, that knowledge, and knowing that, hey, you know what? I don't always have to be perfect with my food, especially in the off season. I can go out, I can eat ad libitum, I can be flexible, I can go bed a little bit later, you know what I mean, and not have this rigid structure. So having structure is great, but oftentimes it can cause a lot more harm than good, especially when you're trying to get to a specific goal, and you're not enjoying the process because, and your friends have got to understand this as well, but you might just be feeling a little bit left out. Your friends might be thinking that you're a bit of a hermit, etc. And obviously there is a time for sacrifice and discipline, but being able to maintain this balance and learning these skill sets, and if you learn the fundamental principles of training and nutrition, you do it properly, you shouldn't struggle. It shouldn't be something where you are so restrictive, especially in an off season if you're not competing, whereas you're missing out on these social events. Also, if you are in off season, your sex drive should be phenomenally high. And anyone who is in a gaining season, has been training for a while and lifts fairly heavy, will probably be nodding their head right now, because obviously generally with an increase in body fat and testosterone, etc., your sex drive is going to be magnified. And I found personally myself, generally the heavier I lift, and once my body fat is at a certain percentage, it's dangerous, shall we say. It's dangerous. And you want to be having these relationships in your life, and I'm not going to go into what your preference is, gay, bi, straight, whatever it is. And some people are asexual and it's 2020, and some people are just woke as fuck. I'm not even going to get into that. But at the end of the day, we're human creatures and we desire physical touch. And as someone who wants to look and feel a lot better as well, I think that's something that does need to be addressed. I mean, most of us do want that intimacy, within our life. And sometimes when you're so busy, or you're so focused on going to bed too early and just eating, and everything's got to fit in, and it doesn't really work. Although the irony of that is that if you're into health and fitness, you'll be attracted to generally people in that sphere, or you'll meet people within that space, and you'll have that in common. But I think that is a really important fact, and it can get neglected. I think for a lot of fitness people who have been together for a long time, people in general take each other for granted, or perhaps people who are just too goal orientated and have no balance, and again they're too extreme, and then they neglect these basic social needs and desires. And just like training sex, releases endorphins and makes you feel good, we were meant to do it as human beings. It is part of our nature, and that's been proven time and again. Sex Education with Alex 101, there you go. Counselling, inbox me for inquiries. Space is opening up now. All jokes aside, guys, 2 more points I want to make is order regulation and intuition versus the numbers. And I've kind of touched base on that already, so I'm not going to go too much in depth, because these vlogs are, again, they're meant to be shorter, sharper, sweeter. And that is more about understanding what I was saying before, between knowing when to follow the structure and knowing the numbers. So I was saying, the plan and the program is a guide, it's not a gospel, and you've got to know when to chuck that guide out the window some days and listen to your body. You got to know when to back the fuck off when you're not feeling too great. And hell, if you're feeling really good and that weight's an RP5, jack it up, lift some more weight. If you're feeling really good, go for whatever it is that you're going for. And it's just that time and that intuition where that calibration, that precision comes together, that accuracy, from where you started off and you're a little bit off, or when you were a young kid, your perception of hot and cold and distance, you see a car coming, you don't really know how fast it is. That's why you got to help kids cross the road and all that. But when you're older, you have a better spatial awareness in time. And it's the same with training. Over time, you get to know and listen to your body, and you get to understand it, and you're more accurate at gauging what the feedback is. And I think that's really, really important. And knowing when that, hey, you know what, I don't have to hit these numbers all the time, because it's not just about the numbers. The numbers are a guide and a metric which ensures that we're moving in the right direction over time. But again, we shouldn't be so overly focused on them, because sometimes the numbers do lie, as much as they can be a backbone. So I think having that can create a lot of balance, because it shows that, hey, you know what, perhaps I'm not going to track these numbers for a while, or I'm going to ease back, I'm going to walk a wider path, or I don't have to track so vigorously on this stage. And again, maintaining that flexibility and balance, I sort of think like a lot of people like on or off, okay? It's like this all the time, where you want to be like this. It's like constantly undulating. Sometimes you're going to go on stormy seas, and then sometimes it's going to be a little bit calmer. And that's kind of like the little metaphor that and I like to use, that little illustration for it, because, it's easy to just be all hardcore, all in, and then all out, and be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking eat everything and get massive, or I'm just gonna restrict everything. Like, that's not a healthy mentality. And the key word here is balance, and it's knowing how to undulate and maintain that and still move towards the desired goal. Again, in a way that's flexible, sustainable, and enjoyable. And the last point I want to make is education versus reality. Once again, that is kind of within what I've been talking about in this whole conversation. And a lot of the time, the reality, and this is all about the misconception with the fitness industry, is very different to the actual, perception, the education. It's, oh wow, if I eat, I'm just going to make some examples, 6-7 meals a day, it's going to speed up my metabolism. Wrong. No, it won't. It's more about energy balance and total caloric intake, etc. Oh, if I do a certain exercise at a certain angle, I'm going to develop more of the tricep, and it's going to be better down here. Not necessarily the case. Use the basic ranges of motion. Understand the muscle. Muscles can only move through certain given ranges of motion. If you hit them from all angles, it will grow. There's no secrets. Getting up and doing fasted cardio, I'm going to burn more fat percentile. Not necessarily true. Again, it all comes down to energy balance, energy in, energy out. Getting a protein shake after my workout, if I don't, I'm going to lose all my muscle. Again, not true. Nutrient timing, one of the things that is higher in the hierarchy. And again, in a fed state, you're not going to go into a catabolic state. All of these little things. So having a really good baseline of education actually creates a better relationship and an ability to create balance within your lifestyle and fitness over time. Because if you understand the fundamental principles and you understand the rules, as a great philosopher used to say, once you know the rules, then you know how to break them. You know how to bend them to your reality. And that is what fundamentally is going to get you to the flexibility and the balance within health and fitness, because knowing when you can change things, knowing when you can just swap things out, walking into a different gym, a different environment, different foods, different times, you know, and you can just adapt. Now that is what maintaining balance is with health and fitness. And if you understand those principles, you can just quickly make these micro shifts and adjustments all the time, and you're not going to have to stress about it, because you know that by just changing a few things around, you're still on track, and the goal is still the goal, and you're still on that journey, and you're still going to get the desired result. Boom. And with that, I think it's an appropriate way to end this vlog. Once again, 20 minutes, keeping it on the tops there, trying to keep these vlogs a bit short, sharp, sweet, ad-libbing them off the cuff, probably a lot of stuff I've not mentioned, so it's just a bit of boom, whatever's going on currently in my head from these key points. But a lot of these key points, guys, as you realize, are very true, they're very real. Address them. Hopefully this has given you a little bit more food for thought based around perhaps some of the things you're doing in your lifestyle. So as always, guys, if you like the video, subscribe for more weekly videos. As always, share it with someone who definitely needs to hear this, and comment below with what you enjoyed. Comment with any struggles that you're having in terms of maintaining balance, or anything that you think I left out that was like, hey dude, this is a really good point, why didn't you put it in there, bro? Talking about sex all the time, so let me know and I'll pop that in there. As always, guys, shameless plugs for all online exclusive coaching and my membership and academy site, which is now live, and you're going to notice a bit of a shift of gears over the past in the next couple of months, which is exciting. Got some big projects on the way and be about to unveil. So guys, thank you as always for your support. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, as always, you know it, stay fearless.